say you're fine, but I can see right through. You're holding your secrets for way too long. This can't keep going on. With every lie, they keep on hurting you, getting away with everything they do. This can't keep going on. No, we're gonna find them, and I'm gonna fight for you. They better start hiding. We'll be running with the lions, lions. We'll be running with the lions, lions. They can't run, they can't hide. We won't stop until they're down. We'll be running with the lions, lions.
Hello, everyone, and happy Sunday, our first Sunday in April, and welcome to another episode of Gloves Off. I'm your host, Dr. Kalpana Sundar, and I am excited about today's episode. First of all, for those of you who have been watching, again, I always appreciate that you're here and joining us every Sunday. And again, love all the comments. I swear, every time I get done with the show, I have a whole bunch of comments and things waiting for me, and I love that feedback. For those of you who are new, and if it's your first time watching, the show is called Gloves Off. And basically, it is a show where I interview people who are making changes in the world and doing some amazing things. And these people strip their egos during the show at some point. Yes, we talk about a little bit of small talk and what they do for a living, but then there's a point where they're going to strip their egos and really just get vulnerable and share some really personal things about their life. And that's what I love about it. So in that vein, I don't know if I've ever said this before, but I live in San Diego, California, and it is, I have to tell you, we've been having the most fabulous weather. It's been a little bit on the chilly side for the past couple of months. I moved here back in November, and now it is just gorgeous, sunny. I mean, it's pretty much always gorgeous and sunny, but we had a little bit of, a cool spell for a little while, and now it is absolutely gorgeous. Went to the market today and just enjoyed the day, and now I'm here with you guys. So today, as I mentioned last week, we have on the show Doug Benefield, and he is my accountant, and I've known him for a while. We actually met while I was in Jacksonville, and I was in my ear, nose, and throat practice in St. Augustine, Florida, and we met then. And it's funny because, I think everybody has the stereotypical idea of what accountants are and what they do and their personalities, which is interesting because most of the accountants that I've worked with don't really fit that prototype, and Doug definitely doesn't. So Doug's firm, he went out on his own a couple of years ago, is called Elevated CPA, and we're just going to watch a quick little promo from them, and then we'll get Doug on the screen. All right, so I'm gonna prove to you how cool Doug is, because what is today's date? April 7th. When are taxes due? April 15th. And here he is joining us on the show today, despite all that. Welcome to the show, Doug. How are you?
Thank you. I'm great. Good evening, Dr. Sundar.
Well, great to see you. So I have always wanted to know, because, first of all, nobody really you can't even talk to your accountant around tax time, right? And here you are joining us on the show, and you're on Eastern time. So it's like, 9:00 for you. So what is it really like during tax season? Are people really nice to you?
It's pretty terrible. No, the clients are always very happy to talk. It becomes a, can we answer all these emails? Can we get all these returns out the door? Which ones have to get out the door? You really have to prioritize, and it becomes which fire is the largest.
Okay. Well, so when do all those fires start? I mean, does it start as early as February or does it?
No, no. People get excited about the second week of January, and they say, "Hey, I want to get my taxes done." And I'm like, "Listen, you don't have any of the stuff you need from your employer, your brokerage account. But yeah, let's start the conversation now."
Okay. Well, I mean, you would think that that's not something people get excited about. So why, what do people get excited about? They want a tax refund? I mean, what's their?
I think it's probably anxiety. We're dealing with one of the few government agencies that is asking you to give them money. Just give us your money, and or we'll give you a refund sometimes. But there's a lot of anxiety and fear around the IRS.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are the fears that people have? I love talking about fear because that's so
Yeah.
much of what I talk about with women and what holds them back. But what are the fears?
I think that a lot of people are concerned that guys in windbreakers with three-letter names on the back are going to show up at your door and take you to jail because you forgot to include 1099 of $10 of interest from your bank account. I think there's a lot of fear that this government agency is going to show up and do that, and it's not that bad. But we're also dealing with something like the DMV. They're hard to get a hold of. The people there, they have to follow these rules. They may not believe in the rules. It's difficult to talk to them. So there's not a lot of communication from the IRS to us. It's like, hey, pay your bill.
Mhm. Yeah, and that can definitely be a very uncomfortable situation. And it's funny that you said the fear because I have to tell you, it's just a silly, irrational fear. But I worry that if I don't pay my taxes, like just exactly on time, if I forget
Yeah,
or something, it's just like it's a thing. I think it's definitely a thing for most people. So because of that, they start bothering you the second week of January.
yeah, yeah. And a lot of times for us, it's communicating to the IRS, but there are only a few ways you can do it. They still take faxes. They'll take certified mail. Um, if I submit something for them to review, it's taking between 6 and 12 months for them to even respond to what I've submitted on behalf of a client. But when they do read it and they process it, you're going to get a letter in the mail saying you need to do this within 10 days.
Hmm.
It's not reasonable that it takes them 9 months to do something and you have to respond in a week. But everybody wants to play by the rules because it's easier if you play by the rules, you stay out of trouble.
Exactly, exactly. And it's so interesting that all these government agencies are so like antiquated, right? I mean, they don't have anybody answering the phone. There's no easy
Yep,
communication. I mean, I dread going to the DMV. And that's
exactly.
like a nightmare.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not sure what happens. I know that our tax dollars go to these agencies. We just throw more money at it like that's the answer. And then I don't know. It's difficult to try and fathom how much these agencies and these departments cost and how difficult they still are to get what you need. I
Right.
just need to renew my driver's license. I just need an answer about this letter you sent me that I think is incorrect.
Exactly. Well, it's funny because, again, when all these people are paying taxes to the government, you would think that you would see some improvements, but yet I don't know. We're still stuck in the 80s if we're still using fax. I don't remember the last time I faxed anything. It's been a while.
We have a digital, we have a a web browser based fax machine now. I take my expensive scanner and I scan the letter in and then I send it off to the IRS, and I assume somebody read it, but I picture there just being a like an old school fax machine with just papers falling off the desk. That's what
Yeah,
I
and
assume.
maybe like one employee sitting there.
Yeah, maybe, or maybe they went to lunch and there's just a stack on the floor of disheveled paperwork.
Who knows? I know. Wouldn't it
I
be
don't know.
fun to like take a field trip to the IRS and see what
I
really happened?
do. I wonder what it looks like.
I
How does
know.
this happen?
Yeah, yeah, it is actually interesting. So, like, clearly you're a glutton for punishment. I mean, one thing I'm realizing is that you have to be because you decided to become an accountant and then you ran and you're now vice mayor too of in Jacksonville, Florida, right?
I
So,
am the yep. I am the vice mayor of our small town just south of Jacksonville. 9,000 residents, 5 square miles. A mile and a half of that is water. We have 9 parks that are town parks. We like sidewalks. We like preserving our neighborhoods. Glutton for punishment. I was always a procrastinator. I really enjoy the pressure of that.
okay.
And what I found with going back to tax season and punishment, if you're in those high stress, high pressure environments, you really get this muscle memory that builds up. I can knock out a tax return very quickly in the next week. This next week for us, heading into the 15th, there will be so much stuff that goes out the door. It's incredible because you've just built up so much. You've been practicing for 3 months. You're remembering what you did last year, and you're pressing buttons, and it all works. It's all right. It's all good. It's awesome. It's fun for me.
That's cool. Well, so what personality trait do you think leads, what is the most common personality trait that would lead to somebody choosing accountant as a
Oh,
profession, sorry.
I liked numbers. I remember I was on the swim team growing up from I don't know age 6 to the end of high school, and I remember being in the pool with your head under the water and it's quiet. It might be noisy because it's bubbly, you can hear things, but it's quiet. And I just remember counting in patterns. I always enjoyed it because there was something black and white about 2 plus 2 is 4 and 4 plus 4 is 8. There was something very clean about that. But I've always enjoyed the pressure. Um, I never did homework at night. I would always do it right before class, right before the test. Um, I enjoyed the pressure, which is tough too because that pressure causes stress. There's an anticipation that this causes stress in my life. It builds and builds and builds, and then you just knock it out. And it's if I'd have just done the work a month ago, it might have been less stressful. But I don't operate that way.
Well, and again, I think that we all are so different, you know? So I would say that I've been the exact opposite of that my whole life. I've always really just gotten to things way, way, way ahead of time. And then recently I've noticed that all of a sudden it's shifted and I'm not doing things that way, mostly because I find that when I plan things too far ahead of time, too many things change. And then I got to go back and change a million other things. So because of that, now I'm at a point where I do procrastinate a little bit more just because it just things do change a lot more in my life. I feel like I'm gotten more intuitive. So if something doesn't feel right, I wait till it does. And if that means that I've let it go longer than I would have liked to, it's okay. But I find that when I get this inspiration and that inspiration hits, then I can get things done faster. So maybe it's not even procrastination. Maybe the pressure leads to that like inspiration hitting where you're like, well, it's now I really got to do this.
Yeah, within the last year, I've kind of come to this realization that a lot of times when I'm procrastinating, I'm not exactly procrastinating the task. I'm trying to make sure that when I do sit down to do this task, that I've thought it through and that the process makes sense and that I've checked all the boxes everywhere. I don't want to sit down and figure it out. I want to think through it and think, okay, this makes logical sense. Now let's go put it on paper.
I think that really is funny because I've noticed the same thing with myself lately. I mean, I may be doing something around the house, but my mind is actively engaged in a project that I'm working on. Especially, I would say that it happens mostly when I'm writing talks. So maybe I'm not, going to sit down and just write it, but I may think about it for a long
Right.
time before I actually do it. And then
Yeah.
when I sit down and do it, like I've got all the parts that I've already thought through and it would maybe it would have taken me a long time to write it, but because I've been thinking about it, then when I actually sit down to write it, it's fast. So,
Yeah.
I think it's funny how processes evolve and change over time. And, maybe procrastination isn't such a bad thing, right?
I mean, I it causes stress for me, but I also I'm able to realize now that I'm planning things out. I'm not just ignoring a task. I'm thinking through them a lot. And I spend a lot of time planning in my head
Mhm.
about a lot of things. I know how I want things to happen. I may just not know how to get there yet, but that's the procrastination that I'm doing.
Well, so I don't know if that's really procrastination at all.
It may
I
not
think
be. What's the term?
I would call it manifesting personally.
Okay.
That's
Well, I
what I
hear
would
that
call it
term now.
because I didn't realize till just now that you and I have a very similar process. And that's what
Yeah.
I do. I used to never do it before because I didn't have the time and the space in my life to even think about a darn thing. It was just robotic movements throughout the day just to get this done next, 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 next. And that was how I lived my life. Well, for me, that's very stressful because not only I don't thrive in that circumstance. I mean, I did it and I could do it, but I wasn't thriving in that kind of environment. What I like to do is really think through things, process it, find the meaning out of things that are happening in my world and how I want them to be and plan. So that's what it sounds like you're really doing. And
Yeah.
I do a lot of that. Sometimes I don't know how I want something to go and I just sit tight because that whatever that is, that intervention, the inspiration hasn't hit, something hasn't come to
Something
fruition.
hasn't clicked.
Yes. And instead of actively trying to solve the problem, I find that it never works when I actively try to solve it. If I'm like sitting there going, I got to solve this, I got to solve this. Oh God, it never gets solved. So now what I do is I actually leave it. And then, maybe I'll just ponder it while I'm doing other things for some time. But then sometimes when I really need to know before I go to bed, I'll say, I really kind of need the answer to this. And it's alarming how often I wake up with the answer that feels right to me.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Then
So,
what I don't enjoy is waking up at 4 a.m. going, I might as well go to the office now and get these tax returns out the door. That's
yeah,
the worst.
4 a.m. is not fun. No,
No,
no.
no,
But
it's too early to work out. You can't move around the house. You'll wake everyone up.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's always a problem. It's fine if you're by yourself because then nobody
Yeah,
cares.
do whatever you want. Go watch TV.
Exactly. Go do
Yeah.
whatever you want. So, but you also work out really early in the morning, don't you? But not at 4.
No, 5.
Okay.
We like 5. It's quiet on the streets. A lot of times we end up lifting weights. We're doing a running program, but a lot of times it's just two of my good buddies, and we're just walking. We're just out walking. We're having conversations at 5 a.m. Your brain is clear.
Hmm.
You know, sometimes it goes somewhere that's exciting, and we have these realizations. Oh, that's why you act the way you do, and now I understand how you're thinking with these other people. But I think it's so good to have peers around you that you can have those conversations with.
It really is. It's amazing. And especially if they live by you, then that's an extra added bonus, right?
Yeah,
You get to
yeah,
really,
yeah.
have these conversations. Now, are they in similar lines of work or different lines of work?
No, I have one of my buddies is a he works for a really successful landscape design company out in Ponte Vedra, and the other guy has a startup home home caregiver. It's not necessarily healthcare, but
Hmm.
um, I think when we look at the population of the United States and they're aging,
Hmm.
people want to stay in their homes. And they
Yes.
don't necessarily need medical care, but they need someone to run them down to the hair salon or pick up groceries and make a warm meal. So
Hmm.
it's exciting. He's got his own company and he's doing well.
That's awesome. And it's so true because it was funny because, you have all these like 55 plus communities, and I always wonder what's there that, I'm like, are they cooking for you? Are they cleaning for you? I mean, I might sign
Yeah,
up, maybe I
yeah.
don't got to do all these things anymore. It'd be great.
I have my oldest client lives in one of those neighborhoods in Jacksonville. She's 94.
Wow.
She calls me every year about the middle of February. I'm always very thankful when she calls. She lives on her own. She walks. I don't think she drives, but I think she must have a network inside of this community of friends that run her to the grocery store and take her to the hair salon, and
That's
it's
great.
it's it's cool.
You know what the IRS should really do is have some sort of service available for our elderly population because too many of them really are driving when they shouldn't. And sometimes they don't really realize that their reflexes are not great. Um,
I have one of those stories too.
oh, yeah? Well, let's hear
Yeah, I'll tell it.
it.
Probably my second oldest client. He married. He's former physician. Um, he came into my office the first year, and he had these black eyebrows, and gray hair, totally gray. And I had never met him in person, but he was referred by my old firm, the big firm, and they said, "Come on in, Dr. Roth." And I guess he went back home and he looked in the mirror. He had colored his eyebrows, but forgotten to wipe off like the excess. So the next time he comes in, I'm a little more aware that he's older, and I go out the front door and I go meet him in the parking lot, and I'm looking at his vehicle, and I'm like, the bumpers have scratches on them, and I'm like, "You shouldn't be driving anymore. I will come visit you from now on."
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So how old was he?
He's probably almost 90.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
married.
it just they don't sometimes they just don't realize, and, watching it a little bit with my dad sometimes, I'm like, "Mm." The other day we were driving gonna where he wanted to drive somewhere, I'm like, "How about I just drive?" And he's like, "No, I can drive." I'm like, "Oh, no, no, dad, you're probably tired, so let me
I
just
got it.
drive.
Just relax. Yeah,
Just
yeah.
relax.
And
Let
I'm
me
sure
just
that
drive."
there's I don't wanna lose my independence, and I look at my grandparents, and my grandfather is, he's still driving. He could still be working if he wanted to. He's almost 90. Um, uh, he's very much active. He walks in the mornings. He's got a bicycle, and it's great to see, but I've got to imagine that it would be so tough for him to not be able to do those things.
Right. And I feel like in so many other ways, they're really so great and sharp and independent and their minds are working, they're thinking clearly, but I think it's really the reflexes that start to go. They don't have the reflexes to adjust as quickly, and that's what I've seen. And it's interesting because you don't notice that if you're driving alone.
Yeah, yeah, we live in a fast-paced world.
Mhm.
And I think we're seeing a movement of people that, "Hey, let me get 10 acres in the country,"
Mhm.
and just because with the internet, post-COVID, I don't need an office. I can work from anywhere in the world as long as there's stable internet.
Exactly.
Some of my clients come in the office, but most of my meetings are Zoom,
Mhm.
Teams meetings. We
Mhm.
use Citrix ShareFile. There are stacks of paper here, but not nearly the number of returns that we do. But
Yeah,
I think
definitely
that
has
we're moving that
simplified.
way.
Definitely simplified things probably to the old days where you probably had massive amounts of
Oh,
paper and things and, things that would take up too much room in your home.
yeah, it's one of the largest frustrations that I have is if I go to print something and that dang printer doesn't work, it drives
Oh,
me up the wall. I don't have to
yeah.
print very much stuff, but I just need the printer to work, and the
Yeah,
technology there is driving me crazy.
definitely. So I have to ask you, how would a person know if they're dealing with an accountant that they could trust? What are the things that, like, for our viewers out there, and out all you guys are welcome to send us some questions in the chat if you have other questions. But I feel like most people don't even really know what to look for in an accountant. What questions should they be asking? What kind of things should they be looking for?
I th For me, it's communication. I'm interviewing my clients just as much as they're interviewing me when we first meet. Um, there are things that if I hear you say them, I may not be interested in having you as a client, or I might not be the right fit.
Hmm.
But
What
I
are those
think that
things? Can you say?
yeah, I can say, but I'm gonna say it gently. Um, Sometimes it becomes clear that the value I provide may not be recognized by the person that by the client sitting in front of me,
Okay.
and
Well,
that's difficult. If I do the work for you and I know that I've put my kind of heart and soul into it, and you don't see the value in it, I can't. I feel bad. I feel bad sending a bill. I don't want the relationship to be like that. Where
Mhm.
so it's tough. But there are things that I see on the front end that sometimes I don't pay attention to, and I take the client anyway, and it becomes kind of there's some friction there.
Mhm.
Um, but then I find somebody that fits better for them.
And it's funny because I think that's such an important thing that we can all learn in life, right? When we're interviewing potential clients or really people, any kind of friendships, anything in general. I think the better you get at figuring out those red flags in the beginning, the better your life goes, right?
Yeah,
You just
yeah.
you just know because it decreases the friction right off the bat. And
And if the friction's there, cut it loose. Let's just
yeah,
call it what it is. We're
yeah.
not a great fit. We see each other on different levels. We
Mhm.
um we've experienced some really good growth since I left the big firm. I was I was a part of the largest locally owned accounting firm in Jacksonville, and we were
Mhm.
bought out by the fifth largest firm in the world. Um, quickly, things changed. We went from 100 employees to 5,000 overnight.
Oh my God.
Um, it was crazy. And then when I finally left, it was just to build a practice where we talked and we communicated, and you know what you were getting, and it's good.
Yeah. Well, I don't particularly like that big firm feel. I just feel like I'm a number that's never been a right fit for
Yeah,
me. And I've always really dealt with this more of a situation like what you have. Like, I like it where I actually can personally talk to the accountant. I have a rule that I don't do any kind of anything with people I don't like. I don't, I mean, especially
yeah,
even business, friendships. And if I look at any kind of association like this, is if I could actually wind up being friends, we don't have to necessarily. It's not like something that has to happen. But if I actually like that person enough that I could possibly be friends with them,
good. Could I
that
sit through dinner with this person?
yes. Or would if they were in town, would I be like, yeah, no, I'm really busy for the next 5 years,
Not, yeah, 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 yeah.
And I think
It's
that's such
important.
it really is. And, I that is so important to me. And, that old adage of, don't mix business with pleasure. I just really, it's one of the things that I'd like to just throw up against the wall and smack it because it's just the silliest thing. If you don't like somebody enough to just be able to have a little personal conversation with them,
Right.
it makes life so much more enjoyable. I know that you and I have, we will talk about some personal things and yeah, we get to business, but God, it just makes everything more enjoyable throughout the day.
It
Um,
is. Sorry. I always thought of myself as an introvert, and now that I'm in this world and in a leadership role, I spend my day talking to people, and I really enjoy doing it. But sometimes I go home at night, and my social, yeah,
it's
I'm
done.
done. I just want to sit. I just want to sit. I don't want to think about anything. It's crazy.
It is hard though when you're an introvert, especially when you have to talk to people all the time. And it's funny, even though I'm an extrovert, I have a limit where I really
Yeah.
need some alone time. So honestly, case in point, the last couple of weeks between traveling and being in different locations, so constantly talking to people, and then coming back to San Diego. Then my son was here, and then we went to a retreat. So it was like constantly people, 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 which I love people, but I have to tell you, by the time my son left and things were quiet, I was like, oh, thank God.
I
And
just
my
want to
dog
sit on
doesn't,
my couch with my
yeah.
dog
And my
and
dog
my
doesn't
remote,
talk.
my
Thank
TV,
God.
whatever. Right. Exactly. Yeah, which is good. I mean, I think it's important to recognize that we need time. And you mentioned it earlier. The tax deadline's 8 days away now. It'll be 7 days away tomorrow.
Yes.
I s- I was tempted to come into work today and work on a Sunday. You can't do it.
Yeah.
I personally need a Sunday day where family, let's reconnect, let's go to breakfast. You've got to be able to disconnect like that too.
Oh,
For me,
it's so important. Honestly, it's funny because I think we get it in our heads that that's going to make us more productive. And I can
it
tell you
won't.
every single time it makes me less productive. If I
Right.
actually just regroup and refresh, which is what I spent all weekend doing because I really needed it, I'm actually way more productive throughout the week. And
It can be stressful though.
yeah, yeah. Because,
Taking that time can be stressful to me. But
yeah.
just the same way you Said it. If I would have worked today, that would have been 7 days in a row, plus I know I have another 7 coming. That's too much.
Hmm.
I would be less productive next week.
Yeah, it's funny. I hear this little dinging and I don't know what it is. Do you hear it too?
I don't hear it.
Oh, weird. Okay, good. As long as nobody else can hear it, I guess. Like, I don't know why I hear it ringing. But no, it's so true because we don't we're trained to feel guilty to give ourselves time off. And even I think I was having this conversation with somebody about the 8 hour workday. Number one, when you're fully on for 8 hours, it's actually very exhausting. Number one. Number
Yeah,
two, we spend a lot of time thinking about work and planning for the work week that is not accounted for, right? Like you're still thinking about work. I feel like that should count.
yeah. During this part of the year, I'm in the office by 8. I usually leave about 6. I don't take lunch, and I sit at my desk with my 3 screens, and I am on for 10 hours, and
And that's a lot.
it's a long time. Every
It
once in a
is.
while, I get up, I walk around the complex, but if I'm working, I'm working,
Yeah.
and that doesn't count the hours at 5 a.m. when I'm talking about how do I get all this stuff and what do I do with these people I hired, and, it's a
Yeah.
lot.
No, it is.
I
It is. And
I also have
nobody.
the ultimate freedom.
Right. So nobody sees that like back end of it. They don't know really what accountants go through. I mean, sometimes I remember being frustrated. I'm like, oh, there's tax season, blah, blah, blah. I didn't realize till just recently how hard that really is. It's funny,
It's wild.
you can know, but not really understand. It's
It's
just
a s
it's a human condition. We cannot understand exactly what somebody's going through unless we've actually done it.
We've done it. It's a slow progression for us. You get the first emails middle of January, tell those people, give me a couple more weeks, and then you get some returns out the door, and now we're into business extension filing season in March. This slow progression, the stress grows, and then
Hmm.
the deadline will come. But just because the deadline came doesn't mean the stress isn't gone. There's still, some follow-up stuff to do, and
Oh yeah.
you find yourself over the next couple weeks after this deadline kind of just taking every once in a while you'll have a deep breath and you'll
Hmm.
just let it out and your shoulders relax a little bit. Okay, we're gonna be all right. But it's this slow progress. You don't know how much is sitting on your shoulders until it falls
Kind of
off, but
hits.
it doesn't fall off immediately. It's gradual.
So let me ask you, how does your family deal with this? Or what do you do? Because I mean, you can't go home after doing this for 10 hours and not like go right to,
Yeah.
you have two young boys, right? How old are they again?
3 and 7. My youngest, my 3-year-old boy Edwin, he will be 4 on Friday. And
Wow.
then my the following Friday, sorry, 2 Fridays from now, and then my birthday will be the Sunday after that. So I come home at 6. I sit around the table while they eat, and we'll put them in the bathtub and put them to bed and read them stories. Reading has to my kids has been like the greatest thing. They love it. I've seen great
Oh.
things from it. I think it's important.
Hmm.
Um,
So how do you find time to like, talk to your wife? Probably is like, wait, I never
Yeah,
see
I
you.
think there's a tendency there where she does get frustrated because I am spent when
Of
by
course.
the time I get home, and she definitely sacrifices during this time of year,
Yeah.
I'm thankful that she understands, and sometimes we have friction because of it, but it will be different in the summer. I will have I might work 4 days a week, and I have a lot more flexibility. I have the ultimate flexibility. I could choose to not go to work. I
Mhm.
could choose to take time whenever I want. I'm motivated to go to work and to work a lot, but I'm thankful that I have a big family unit around that can handle my stress too. Because sometimes I can't talk or I can't communicate anymore when I get home, and I just need to sit.
Right. And that's the benefit of having somebody that really understands what you're going through. At least for all of us out there who are listening, or for our audience who's watching and listening, we don't ever think about how this affects, you, not only you, your family, your children. And so when they don't, and it's probably frustrating when somebody doesn't understand the value of what you're providing because
Yeah,
these several months can be very brutal, and it's hard to go at that pace for a couple of
Yeah,
months. And
yeah, but I signed up for it. I knew what this
yeah,
was. My favorite, and I got one on Friday. Client emails, what's the status of my tax return? And at the bottom it says, "Have a great weekend." And I'm thinking, you have no idea. I'm going to be here stressing about your stress.
right,
Um,
right.
but
Well,
I signed up for it. I'm in the office at 5:30 in the morning studying for the exam, and then go work all day and come home
mhm.
with the family, but
It's
I
it's
enjoy it.
It's not yeah, it's not easy. I mean, I lived that life too, raising my kids. I would just be up at 5 in the morning or something, be gone for 10, 11 hours, come home, you know, hang out with the kids a little bit, put them to bed, and often I'd have charts to still do afterwards, and I
Yeah,
like
yeah,
try to be like finalizing that. Oh, it's just go go go. But
yeah.
one of the things I wanted to mention was I also have some thoughts on what I feel like makes a good accountant. One thing was
Oh,
the communication.
yeah,
The other thing is that for me, I need an accountant who I feel will fight for me. It's not just a tax return. I mean, I want them to come to me with like, hey, well, we could take this deduction, this. Oh, didn't you have a home
yeah,
office? So, though the tax law changed, and this, whatever. And this, if you actually know I'm sure you know your clients. So that's one thing I've seen with you, and that's very different. And I feel like when that comes into the table, you really feel like you have an advocate on your side, which is super important. And also, you're also involved in some other things where some of your clients have different avenues that they can with the yachts and all that. If you want to just tell us a little bit about that, I don't know how to explain it.
sure,
Generally, no,
sure.
but
We for whatever it is, the industry, and I think it's a staffing shortage on all levels in the accounting industry. Everybody needs accounting help. Everybody needs their taxes done. There are fewer and fewer people that want to do it. And the most recent statistic I heard, 75% of accountants will retire in the next 15 years. So unless you're educating, unless you're enticing people to come into this awful job where you work 60, 70 hours a week sometimes, there's a shortage.
Mhm.
I like to have these conversations with my clients. I like to know what they're doing. The hardest clients to advocate for are the ones that don't tell you anything and they don't want to communicate. And you just feel like I could give you so much more if we would just have these conversations. What are you doing in your life? You want to move to California? Great, let's do it. Um, we do work. I do have a specialized arm of my firm where, for lack of a better term, we help people ride off their boats. So most of my clients that are in this boating industry, they're buying $1 million to $2 million catamaran, usually a sailing catamaran. They'll put it in the Bahamas in a BVI. It sits in a charter program. The boat makes money. You get a huge tax write-off on the front end because of depreciation law. And they're using it to offset the sale of a business, or maybe they're pulling money out of their IRA because they're retired now. I want to get the money out of the IRA, but I don't want to be taxed at ordinary income rates. So I can buy this boat that I get a little bit of access to, then lose money because of the depreciation law. It's fun.
Yeah, it is fun. And it
Yeah.
is interesting, and these are things that people don't generally know about. And, it's funny because some people just want to do their own taxes. That's fine. But there's a lot to keep up with when you have to keep up with all the tax laws and all the nitty gritty. I mean, I frankly don't want to even think about it. I know that would just lead me to massive frustration and no, thank you.
A lot of people, a fair number of people can do their own taxes, and something like a TurboTax works totally fine.
Mhm.
Um, and sometimes those people come to me and they say, "Hey, I think I need an accountant." And I say, "I'll be happy to do the tax return for you. I don't think you need it, but if it gives you peace of mind that I'm signing it instead of you, I'll do it." But TurboTax would work just fine for a lot of people.
Mhm. So when do would people need an accountant for people who are out there maybe doing their own taxes and considering maybe that they would rather not do it themselves?
People need an accountant if they have a business,
Yeah.
even a side gig, even if you work a W-2 job. and you're doing a little something on the side, you need an accountant. The IRS audits small business owners the most, and
Oh, wow.
specifically small business owners that don't have separate business tax returns. So
Mhm.
everything is on the personal 1040. It's called a Schedule C. And a lot of those people are doing their own taxes also. So for whatever reason, they're running this little business on their 1040, it gets reported. All the data is right there for the IRS to audit. And if you're doing it on your own, you might tend to understate revenue and overstate expenses, and the IRS knows that. So
Mm.
that's what they look at the most.
Interesting. Okay, that's
Mhm.
really a good fun fact to know. So I want to actually go back to your procrastination issue. I
Oh,
remember a comment, which we've already decided is not procrastination, it's manifestation. Don't you
that's
love how
right.
I change things and make them sound good? But
I
no,
like it.
I really do think that's what you're doing. But you had mentioned that it took you a long time to go through school.
I did.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting story.
I I never really had to try in middle or high school. I went to a small independent school. I was accepted to the University of Florida in the spring of my junior year, right before senior year. So I already knew that I was going to Gainesville. I had a scholarship. I was set up, and I got down there at 18, and I was not ready. Um, I passed one class in 2 semesters, fall and spring, and my parents said, not we're not paying for you to be here unless you're gonna go to class." I came home, um, and I went to work, and it still took, I don't know, 4 or 5 years for the light switch to flip. It I was 25 years old before I realized that my actions had consequences. Which seems crazy, but maybe it's the male brain. It's like there was a light switch one day when I thought, "Oh, all these things I'm doing, they have consequences, they have outcomes." And I went back to school, and I paid for it on my own the first semester, and I took a reasonable number of classes, and after that, it was like, "Okay, let's get this done. I'll take 15 or 18 hours." I didn't take a semester off, so I did 90 hours in 5 semesters. Graduated with decent grades, got an internship, started studying. Now I have my own CPA firm, which just seems crazy. But if you decide what you want to do and you work hard at it, hard work is where it is. I mean, for me, it was always hard work.
But did you know you wanted to be an accountant back then, or was that something you
No,
decided along
no.
the way?
So when I went back to school, when I finally got smart and went back to school, we were in the thick of the 2008 recession.
Hmm.
And I read a Wall Street Journal article that said if you want a job out of school, you have to pick accounting or finance. And I picked accounting. And then I got to the end of my accounting, my degree, and I'm interviewing for these internships. And in the accounting world, there's two roads: audit or tax. I didn't know much about any of them. I just knew accounting theory. I'm interviewing with this lady who had a family friend that was a partner in the firm, and she said, "What do you want to do, audit or tax?" And I said, "I don't know. I don't know how I'm supposed to know." And I remember saying to her, "That's probably the wrong answer." And she said, "Yeah, that's the wrong answer." And I thought, "Well, I'm never gonna not know which one I want again." So the next
Mhm.
internship, I said, I want audit." Um, the audit I'm talking about is it's not necessarily IRS audit. It's banks and financial companies. So if you run a big business and you've got a large line of credit, the bank wants to know that the numbers that you're reporting to them are real. So you're audited by a CPA firm to basically prove that you can repay the loan or the line of credit.
Okay.
It's kind of a thankless job. The client doesn't enjoy it. You send them a big bill, there's not much value add, and I thought, "You know what? I'll move to the dark side. I'll go to the tax department where I can actually help people." And it's just been so good.
Yeah. It's funny. You figured it out by default. Try this. This didn't work. We're going to go the other way.
I wasn't going to answer that question wrongly, Ken. That's for sure. I was
Yeah.
going to pick one.
Well, it's interesting to me though that, I wonder if you took so long to get out of school because you didn't really know what you wanted to do. And I always say that this is very unfair. I've actually given talks about this, that how can we expect an 18-year-old to know what they want to do with the rest of their life? I mean, 18 is so young, and I think the advice that we should be giving our children is pick something that's, you may or may not stay in it, because that's exactly the advice I gave to my children. I said, pick something that is of interest that you think you can enjoy, maybe get a decent job starting out, but don't feel like it has to be your career for the rest of your life, because you really don't know. You change, you grow, you evolve. How are we supposed to pick at that age? And granted, I did it. I went to medical school. I knew I was going to be a doctor. I knew I was going to be a surgeon. And it's interesting because I actually look back at a lot of my traits and skill sets, even as I apply it to a whole new career. A lot of those skill sets I'm still utilizing, just in a completely different way.
Totally
And
different.
yeah, so we have the ability to reinvent ourselves if we want to. Some people don't
Sure.
need to, but it's nice to know that you can. I just feel like it puts so much pressure on an 18-year-old to figure out what they want to do for the rest of their life. That's
I
very normal.
was I was not responding to that pressure.
Yeah.
And I was I don't know, unwilling to uh, I was unable to make decisions that made sense. And I don't know what the right answer was. Should I have just taken time off? Should I have gone into a trade? I don't know. I'm
Well,
here, but I
and
wouldn't
again,
be who I am unless I went through all of that.
well, one of the things I think is important is not to start pigeonholing people, because again, like for me, I think college was and medical school was the right choice for me at that time. But I know that I've met many people that it's not the right choice for them. And then they feel pressured to go to college, and maybe they would have been better off in a trade school. And this is why I'm always preaching, know yourself, understand it. Don't allow other people to pressure you. But unfortunately, when you're 18, everybody can pressure you.
Yeah, yeah, you have to make a decision. You have to do something, and a lot. But you were successful through it.
Oh
You
yeah,
were a
yeah.
physician. And, yeah,
I
it's
don't
over.
regret it because it has taught me such valuable skill sets, and it's kind of fun because I have learned to just take all the things that I knew how to do, and I'm putting them together in different ways, and I'm like, "Oh, look at this. I just created a whole new life for myself, which I
I
enjoy
know,
even more." And
and
I did
I
it for 25 years. It wasn't a short time,
yeah,
and sometimes you just want to do something different. Get old
yeah,
enough
yeah.
and you do something for long enough, you could change your mind.
I've really enjoyed watching you progress because I think when we met, you had just finished. You were wrapping up your practice,
Mhm.
and it's been exciting to see
Yeah,
you progress. I want to
and
know more
scary as
about the
hell.
black belt. Yeah, crazy. Like, okay, let me walk away from this successful medical practice to
Yeah. And it was funny because I remember when, COVID happened, and I really sat back and I said, you know what? I mean, I could resurrect this. I mean, I've done it before. There's been times where, things happen, and I've improved it. And then I just thought to myself, and I'm like, but I don't want to. I don't
don't
even
want
really
to.
I don't want to do this anymore. I want to live. And I didn't feel like I was living. And that was just my big thing. So, and I didn't have the freedom to like not work a little bit. Like it was all the time, 24/7. And I thought, if I do this for the rest of my life, I'm just going to be in an early grave, and
Yeah,
that's not what I want. So,
not
I
good.
felt like it was a great 25 years that I did it. And then it was just time to do something different and, just experience life in a different way.
Yeah.
And, I think once my kids were older, I had the opportunity to do that. So, yeah, we have to make our decisions for what works for us at that time.
I think it is important to take a step back and look at where you are and where you're going. And if you're not happy with your situation, you have the ultimate power. You can do whatever you want. Anybody can.
Yes, yes, that's true. And that's one thing that I think everybody should know. Life is too short. I
It's too
mean, it's
short.
wonderful that you like what you do and you enjoy the people you work with, but if for those of you who are out there that struggle with these kind of things, I obviously coach women through these things, that when they're feeling fear or trepidation around a career change, or even as they're leveling up in life, because they're different. It's funny when I say fear to people, they just think of like the low level fear, like, oh my god, I'm afraid of everything. But there is fear at all levels, and the women that I enjoy helping are the ones that are like these high power women. We have fear too. I mean, we don't escape
Yeah,
fear. We have different things that come up in our life. And that's what I enjoy helping women with. And it's funny, lately I've had a lot of men ask me, how come I don't coach men? And now I'm like really having a little bit of an existential crisis now. I'm
yeah,
like, well, maybe I should, I mean, why not? If it's
that's
I think
wild.
it's really about the right fit, right?
Yeah,
Some men maybe won't be the right fit, but others really are. So I don't know. It's funny. I've been really thinking about that and
yeah.
pondering it.
When I left the big firm to go out on my own, I reconnected with the the smaller firm that we loved. Everybody loved it, the LBA group. We had a partner who was, I don't know if you've seen Billions. She was like the person that you could come talk to, the professional coach um, in the firm. And then when I left the big firm, I called her up and I said, "Listen, I just need to bounce ideas off of you. I want to make sure that what I'm doing, I'm comfortable with. I just needed a third party to kind of, hey, I'm doing this. I'm going for it. Let me bounce these ideas off of you." And it was great.
Oh, that is nice. That is nice. So we're getting close to the end of our time here, and I wanted to see if there was anything else you felt like you wanted to share with our audience. I mean, I think I'm going to actually put at the bottom of the screen how to get a hold of Doug, his website. But I know that there's probably something we haven't asked you. What should I have asked you that I didn't ask you about?
I don't know. I think the glutton for punishment is great. We didn't really dig into the local politics. It's weird.
Oh, I bet.
There are 9,000 people, but you better believe that almost all of them have opinions, and they will let you know those opinions. And
Oh,
it's
yeah,
a
that's got
small
to be hard. It
town.
probably feels like you're in that little firing squad.
You know what we do? We sit up on this, we call it the dais. There are 5 seats, and we have the town's attorney is here, and the town manager's on the left, and we're just sitting there. If you want to get up and complain for your 3 or 5 minutes, go bring it. And we just sit there and take it. And a lot of times it's miscommunication that causes frustration
Do you think that
in that
small
realm.
towns are worse than larger towns?
Maybe, maybe, but they're both difficult in their own ways, and they both have their own good parts. Um, we're small. We like the way it feels where we live, and ultimately that's why I got involved with my town because I didn't want to look back and be upset at how the town turned out if I didn't
Mhm.
do anything about it.
That makes sense. That makes
Yeah.
sense. How long have you lived there?
Almost my whole life.
Oh, wow. I
So
didn't realize that.
my mom is 5 houses south. My in-laws are across the creek. We could almost throw a rock. My sister-in-law is down the street. My best friend's down that street. My aunt is on the corner. There's probably 15 of us within about a half-mile circle.
Wow.
Um,
That's
I'm
interesting.
never I'm never getting out.
You're not moving to California, that's for sure.
Probably not. Probably not. If I move anywhere, it's like Puerto Rico or on a boat. And I'll see you later. I'm gonna get Starlink. I'll be doing tax returns from my boat in the
Yeah.
islands.
Well, I don't know. That's not really a bad way to go. I mean, I think there are worse things in life than that.
It's good. Yep.
That's so funny. Well, I actually that's funny because that's a fact I did not know about you, and I feel like we've known each other a couple of years now, and I did not know that everybody
Oh
was
yeah.
so close.
Well,
Is that hard at times, or?
no, it's great. I mean, the reason I got on the town council was because I wanted to get golf carts legalized so I could drive around in my golf cart. We're like a non-golf cart community. No, it's great.
You know what's so funny is golf carts are so popular in Florida. And like, I'm always like laughing at the differences between Florida and California. And I don't remember the last I've not seen a golf cart anywhere.
Oh,
I mean,
really?
well,
Yeah,
I don't
I
know.
have two. I have two of them.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they have them, but in Florida, it was such a thing. I mean, I haven't seen a golf cart since I've been here.
Yeah,
And
that's
one thing
crazy.
that cracks me up is people don't know how to drive in the rain here. They don't really in Florida either. But if there's rain, which weirdly there's been enough rain, more than I would
I
have
thought there had
expected.
been more this year.
Yeah, but there's always like some crazy accident, and there's a lot of flooding when it's raining here. So
Nowhere for
just
it to go. Yeah.
yeah, they're not used to it in any way, shape, or form. So I find that interesting. But overall in Florida, compared to one of the big things I've noticed for me is the way I live my life. In Florida, I used to actually I didn't want to go outside when it was too hot, which was pretty much all the time in my opinion.
Right.
So if I had to take my dog out at noon, I was like, oh my God, it's so hot. I have to go out and take this dog out. Now it doesn't even matter because the weather's so nice all the time.
Thanks for rubbing it in. It's the humidity. It's the humidity.
It
It
is.
is.
And
I
and
mean,
no bugs or anything, which is
ugh,
fabulous, which is the other great thing. And AC, like one thing I thought about the other day was that I lived my whole life in an air conditioned place. I mean,
yeah,
we wouldn't open the windows because it's so humid, and now I have the windows open all the time.
yeah.
And it's like,
We've
wow,
had Jacksonville has had like a week, this last week, where it's in the 50s in the morning. There's very little humidity.
oh,
It's
nice.
like highs in the low 70s. It's been great. I'm waiting for that first day where you take a shower and you put your clothes on and you're getting ready to go to work. And as you step out the front door, the humidity just hits you, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
I shouldn't have even showered because
Yeah. It's
it's
like,
just
why
hot.
bother?
It's just so hot. Yeah.
Well, the funny thing was the last time I was in Jacksonville, I was getting my black belt and I was doing my black belt training and
Yeah.
my black belt test in Krav Maga. I think it was 30 degrees and I was only in Jacksonville for 2 days. I figured it's going to be busy. Don't bother bringing a jacket. Well, that was a big mistake. It was really cold.
That's funny.
Well, I have to say it's been a pleasure having you on. I'm so grateful for you, the work that you do, and for you being here during this busy tax time and taking
Yeah.
an hour out of your day to be here live on the show with us.
Thank you
And
for having me.
yes, yes, it's been wonderful. And again, appreciate your sponsorship of the show. And I'm sure we'll have you on again next time. Maybe if you get some other political positions, we can interview you
Oh,
again.
perfect. Perfect. Yeah. No, it's been great. And I've really enjoyed watching you progress and grow, and it's been fun.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, you have a fabulous rest of the evening. Hello to your family from us at Gloves Off. And I'm sure I'll be talking to you soon. And good luck with the rest of the tax time.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Well, everybody, that was Doug Benefield. He is a great guy, as you could see, just super down to earth. It's so nice when you can actually have a conversation with somebody and they're easy to talk to. Just a couple of quick things that I wanted to end today with. I got a beautiful message from Wolfgang. I had him on the show a couple of weeks ago. He was the coach for female founders. I got a lovely follow up, a photo of him and his mom, and a voice message from him and his mom. They really had some nice talking, and I don't want to spoil all the details because I'll probably have to have him come on the show again to share what that experience was like. And then a little personal announcement for me is that one of the big things that I've done differently is I joined a boxing club here in town. And my commitment now is to really try different forms of martial arts. So I have the black belt in Krav Maga, and I've been excited about trying different disciplines like jujitsu, boxing, and Muay Thai. So I've done a couple of boxing classes, which has been really fun. Really makes my brain think in a different way because I got to used to certain things in Krav Maga. And the other day I did a Muay Thai class, which was really really fun. So anyway, if if you guys are thinking about martial arts, oh god, please try it because I love it so much. And next week we are going to be interviewing Anna Williams, and she is a survivor of domestic abuse, and she's really been this champion for this journey for women to be able to speak up. And I'm excited to hear more about her story, and it's going to be one of those stories that I think is going to probably make me cry. I'm going to have to try to hold it together the best that I can during that whole interview. But looking forward to hearing how she turned that like really, really difficult time in her life and then turned it into something positive. So anyway, again, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for tuning in and watching the show every week. If there are topics that you'd like to see, you can certainly message me. I'm on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook. All the handles are the same at Gloves Off TV. And you can message me, and I'd love to hear your comments and get different things on the show that you want to see. Have a great Sunday, everybody.